Verse 9, I think. I believe so. All right. I'll start the recording. Just a sec. The Heart Sutra, right? I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. That is, here at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vajra mountains in Rajgir, together with a great community of monks and a great community of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in concentration in the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look on it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition, factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no element in so on up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on dwell on the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error to reach the end point of Nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of the great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhiso. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I become a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. By accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. Hi guys. One of the weird things I encountered when I came to Australia was that it's permissible to say hi guys. Even girls say to each other hi guys. I thought that this is really weird. Yeah. Hi guys. Okay. So let's continue with laziness. At least the explanation of laziness. Yeah. I thought it's a good comment. It's a good.
Let's get into the mood. Laziness.
I'm speaking to you, Graham, particularly to you. Let's continue with laziness.
Then you'll be speaking to me in another week. You'll be speaking to me person to person, maybe coming up on next Wednesday.
Ah,
the flight. Yeah,
you're gonna brace yourself. So come around.
Yeah, you'll get
a Bodhisattva vow thing. All right, Nusa will be overwhelmed. That's what I can say for the time being. Anyway, so we spoke of laziness yesterday. I'll put in front of all of us the tutorial notes. So we said that laziness is the opposite of virtue. While virtue is delighting in virtue, being enthused about it, laziness is non-enthusiasm about virtue. So we do speak here about different types of laziness, and this type of laziness are classified according to the causes of laziness. So there are different reasons for being lazy. There are different reasons for being unenthused about virtue. And Lama Tsongkhapa in Islam and Chenmo explains it in an interesting way. He says that looking at the result is non-engagement with practice. This is the result that you get. So it is related to, of course, laziness, but it says that just when you look at the surface, you're not practicing. Or you could say that you're not practicing in extracting your fullest potential. So why are you not practicing, he says? There are two main reasons. One of them is you procrastinate, and there are different reasons for procrastinating your practice. That's the first reason for not practicing. And it says that you know that you can do it. You know that it is in your ability, and still you procrastinate. I think that probably many of us are in that category. We know that we can practice. Not only we know that we can, on some level we wish to do better, but we're still in some sense not doing our best. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about Turkey, talking about the rest of us. It just kind of suddenly dawned on me that I'm definitely not at your class. Yeah. So when I say we, it's kind of we in this area, not in that area, in this area. Royal. All right. So no, actually, kind of, I do think that you're totally enthused about virtue most of the time. All right. Ask you in February 1, not January 1, but February 1. All right. So, although we know that we can practice, we're still not doing it properly. So that's one situation that Lama Tsongkhapa mentions. The second situation is that we're not practicing because we think that we are incapable of practicing. So this is also something that we end up with in certain situations. We think that this is too hard and so forth. Now, to engage in practice is often seem to us to be involved with sitting in cross-legged situation. I wanted to say sitting in a three-legged situation, but it's not three-legged, it's a cross-legged situation. So we're not sitting in cross. So we think that in order to practice, we need to sit on a cushion. Yeah, sorry. We need to sit on a cushion, not to have a certain meditation posture. And we either think that we can do it or we cannot do it. But actually, here when I think that when Amazon Kappa is speaking of being unable to engage the practice, I think that it refers to study, reflection, and meditation in general, because there are also topics sometimes that we study in which we think that this is way too hard for me, I can't do it. I mean, particularly when we think of topics such as emptiness or Buddha potential or tenets or what have you. We think that this is just for smart people, people that are really intelligent. I cannot do that. The only thing that I can do is to meditate on bodhicitta. The only thing that I can do is to accumulate mantra. So that's laziness of discouragement. It's, of course, it's not to say that those topics are easy or that we will readily develop realizations or good understanding, but just kind of telling ourselves the story that it's too hard and someone like me will never be able to get it is the second situation that Lama Tsongkhapa describes. So he says that this is what's happening on the ground. Those are two situations in which we do not engage in practice. Now he says that when you examine those situations in which we do not engage in practice, with the first one, the one that we know that we can practice, but we still procrastinate, that there are different reasons to that. And this is what laziness is joining into this presentation. He says, there could be different reasons. One of them is that you think that I still have time. There's a lot of time at hand. I don't need to do it now. I mean, obviously we think that I can do it later on. I mean, in my first few years of engagement with Buddhism, I was kind of thinking that, when I'll get to 50 or 60 or 70, when I'll be able to retire, then I will be able to put a lot of time and effort into my practice, So we think that I have time. Or we wake up in the morning, we don't feel like correcting our motivation or doing practice, so we think that I'm going to do it afternoon. I still have time. Or when we approach the study of a particular topic and we feel like, I don't feel like doing it, I feel like taking a break, I'll be able to do it later on. So in that sense, there is the procrastination in which we think that we have time. It reminds me that a few years ago, when we studied the middle way studied the Madhyamika topics, Geshe Jamin studied the whole 2.5 years of study with saying that sometimes when we look at the conditions that we have at hand, they seem to be so perfect, so good, and there's that impression that it will always be like that. So if you think that if it will always be like that, I'll always have those good conditions, and you think that now I have the time to do something else. Later on, I'll be able to study Madhyamika. Yeah. Yeah, we also tend to procrastinate to next life, thinking that, well, if I don't get to do it this life, I'll do it next lifetime, and assuming that in next lifetime, again, we'll be born as human being, again, we will meet the Dharma, again, we will be cared for by spiritual teachers, so we have that idea that that is likely to happen, but likely not. So Geshe Jamin said that, if you think that I can do something else now and think that you'll get that opportunity again in the future, it's a mistake. And again, and I think that in hindsight, it was quite right in the sense that to be able to spend, for example, 2.5 years studying Madhyamika, having, we still have a Geshe, right? So we have a Geshe that teaches us, we still have a translator, but we also had a big group of people that were really keen on studying this topic, doing conversations, doing debate, doing presentations. So, the center was functioning reasonably well. So there was also a lot of support coming from the outside for the study program. So it seems that is not available at the moment, like it used to be. And I don't think that it will be available soon for some time. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But then I think that it is likely that for most of us, we're not going to have that opportunity again, like it used to be before. And this is the type of procrastination that we sometimes have in thinking that things work well for me, so I still have time. Can do it later on. So that's the first reason for knowing that you have the ability to do it, but you don't do it. The other reasons for procrastinating, Naman Tsongkhapa says, is that you get sidetracked. There are different things that are getting your attention. And mainly, these are what we call ignoble activities. Now, this term ignoble activities, in the way that it is expressed in Tibetan, it has that connotation of engaging with things that are rather negative or bad, or I think that it was translated in a text, inferior activities. So it's not to say that they're necessarily inherently bad activities, but for example, if I think that I just want to watch a movie, just take it easy. I'll be able to meditate later on in the evening. In that sense, I choose kind of a lesser activity over spending some time in cultivating virtue. Or, I'd rather just just lay around for some time. I'll be able to do it later. So that type of activity is considered to be an inferior activity. So it's not necessarily negative or ignoble as like non-virtuous action. Sometimes it can be. When we succumb to our afflictive states of mind, we think that, this is, I don't need to do it now. I can do it later on. So this is the second reason that we procrastinate, right? So the first one is that because we are sure that we still have time, we can do it later on. The second reason is that we get sidetracked. We get busy with other stuff. No, I think that the way that Lama Tsongkhapa presents that is saying that there are two reasons for not practicing, although you know that you can. So thinking that I have time, I still have time, I guess that we can, it is underpinned by the assumption that conditions will always be there, that you will always be able to do that. And I think that Geshe-la spoke about it today quite, I think, pertinently, quite directly. It says that you think that you'd be able to do it when you get old, but then your body declines, your mind declines, you cannot be as focused as before, you're not quick as before, you're not sharp as before. So yeah, you can do, of course, we are doing our best. I mean, and for most of us, we have encountered Buddhism in the later stage of our lives. So it's not that we had a choice to begin with. Sorry? Yeah.
Better late than never.
Yeah. Yeah, so Turkey is saying that Mensikan, the Tibetan Institute for Medicine and Astrology, doesn't take anyone if they're more than 25 years old. You have to be less than 25 years old to be trained. It reminds me of an anecdote that when I was part of the organizing committee of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's visit to Israel. His Holiness visited Israel 4 times. And I had a fortune to be on the committee for a couple of times, and we had to get an insurance for the whole visit. So we asked for a medical certificate from India, and we got a medical certificate from Mensikan. And at the top of the certificate was Tibetan Institute for Medicine and Astrology. So we sent it to the insurer, and we got like a phone call back and said, "Are you kidding us? You're getting a certificate from Astrological Institute." Anyway, so Olaf is saying, "Don't worry, we'll be young again." Yeah. The question is, which body? Are you going to be young again as a dog, as a lice, as a health being, as a human being? What will be your freedoms and opportunities? Are you going to be young and healthy in a country that does not allow the practice of Buddhism? Are you going to be young and healthy in a country that doesn't have the Buddhist tradition at all? So I'm trying to appear to be worried. Not always, but I'm worried. All right. So I spoke about Lama Tsongkhapa. So let's look at the way that Lama Tsongkhapa explains that. So he says, when he identified factors which are incompatible with joyous effort, he says there are two factors with entering the path or engaging the path. Not engaging, not entering, even though you see that you can do the practice. And the second is not entering because you become discouraged, thinking, how can I do such a practice? Indeed, there is also not practicing because you're unconcerned with whether you're capable or not. But this is irrelevant here, since this explanation is for those pursuing liberation. Sorry, I didn't share it with the people at home. Just a second. All right, so it says there are two factors incompatible with entering the path, not entering, even though you see that you can do the practice, and not entering or not engaging the practice because you become discouraged, thinking, how can I do such a practice? When he speaks about the third option of not engaging with practice, I think that it refers to anyone in our society, which means that most of our society are not interested in Buddhist practice. Some people are interested in other traditions. Many people are interested in no spiritual tradition whatsoever, no spirituality. So we don't really speak about those people here. We speak about those who do engage to a certain degree, to some degree, the Buddhist path, the Buddhist practice, but we still experience different situations in which we don't make the most out of our practice. So it says, with the first factors, which means that you know that you have the ability to do it, but you still don't, you have the laziness of procrastination, thinking there's still time. And the second is that you are not procrastinating, but you're overwhelmed by your attraction to inferior and common activities. I mean, I'm wondering if you are overwhelmed by your attachment to inferior and common activities, like watching the telly, watching the tennis, going out with friends, and so forth, going to the swimming pool, doing gardening. I'm just trying to cover all my bases here. So, we are procrastinating, aren't we? I mean, we do it kind of in a sense that we know that, if we are still attracted to those things and we do that and think that, I can practice later on, it seems that to me that there's still some procrastination going on. At least I'm speaking about it with respect to myself. So in this vein, Shantideva says, the factor incompatible with joyous perseverance is said to be laziness, adhering to what is ignoble, and self-contempt out of discouragement. So that's verse 3, right? It's verse 3 in a chapter, and second or the third verse, I can't remember. I think that's the third verse. Yeah. Because relishing the pleasurable taste of indolence, it sounds pretty attractive, doesn't it? I totally relish it. And craving based on sleep, from not being disillusioned with the suffering of cyclic existence, laziness grows very strong. So because of that, we become totally unenthused about cultivating virtue. So that's what Lama Tsongkhapa says in his Lamrim Chemo. So Lama Tsongkhapa says that first of all, we have what's happening. We're not engaging in practice. And he says that the non-engagement with practice is related to laziness. So laziness is being unenthused about practice. And then we have the causes of laziness. So what are the causes of laziness? There are indolence, which means just being inactive, not being prone to do something about it. We can be disinclined to practice or just being idle, because you can say we are just like, or we like not doing anything. We prefer not to work hard. He also speaks about relishing, relishing that experience. How does he put it? Relishing the pleasurable taste of indolence. Yeah. Yeah. And he also speaks about craving based on sleep. So not only based on sleep, but I think that in that we can also add to that other ignoble activities, just preferring to do other things which are not necessarily involved with study, reflection, meditation. I mentioned all of them before, so we don't have to giggle about it again. So craving based on sleep, that's the second cause. And the third one is not being disillusioned with the suffering of cyclic existence. Because of them, laziness grows very strong. So after presenting what the causes of laziness is, and we linked it up also with laziness being just being unenthused about virtue, Shantideva explains the way to overcome laziness, and it begins with overcoming the laziness of just being attracted to indolence. As it says, relishing the pleasure of indolence. Before we get to the antidotes for that laziness of relishing the pleasure in being idle, let's look at what Olaf is saying. Can we engage those activities with correct motivations for others' benefit? Sorry, so probably it's based on in infinite future, I'm sure we'll be humans again. I'm sure also, and I also hope that many times over again. So can't we engage those activities with correct motivations for others' benefit? So Olaf, could you please elaborate which activities do you refer to? You mean virtuous activities in general?
Yeah, look, I'm just thinking,
yeah,
just any activity, any, say gardening, for example, can't I think I'll make this place beautiful for the benefit of all sentient beings, and therefore you've got a correct motivation to be out there gardening. Or I'm not so sure about playing tennis, but at least the gardening one, No, tennis, can I make this body fit to be a fit purpose for the Dharma, etc.,
Yeah. Yeah.
Playing tennis before we score, and now you're telling me I've been doing the wrong thing. Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you can. So Katie's saying gardening necessary for food, music to soothe the ailing. Yeah, I think that you guys are finding a lot of excuses today. We can bend reality. I mean, no, of course, I mean, jokes aside, of course, you can say that any activity that you take up, even as far as just having a meal, just having a glass of water, can be done with a bodhicitta motivation, right? So it's not that this is what I do now, but.
Yeah, we should be saying, I should be saying Om Mani Padme Hum every time I throw up the ball to serve during tennis. Yeah, I should be thinking it at least. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Have a go. So
I missed the ball.
Yeah. So of course you can correct your motivation in this way, and in this way you can turn every activity that you do to be a Mahayana activity. But I think that we also sometimes just need to be honest to ourselves. In that if your motivation is so strong to be of benefit to others, you incorporate every activity that you do for the sake of others. But then if you think that I really like gardening, or I really like tennis, I really like swimming, so I'm going to swim with a good motivation, but at the same time, I will neglect other things. I will neglect my study, reflection, and meditation. Yeah, you can do those activities with a positive motivations, but still involved with laziness. So it's not that here I'm sitting here in a kind of pious position and say that you guys are not doing it well. I'm just saying that when you look at your life and look at how much time, when I look at my life, when we look at our life, we look at how much time do we spend on study, reflection, and meditation. And then we take whatever we study, reflect, and meditate on and apply to other areas of our life. The goal is to make everything be motivated with a sense of concern for others. But still, we can sort out our priorities and see what is the most important thing for us to do now in terms of our spiritual development. Of course, we have here a community of monks and nuns that live at Chemrezik Institute, and normally when we have tutorials, the people that I see in front of me here are monastics, so it's easy to speak to monastics, but I know that most of the people that listen to the teachings online are people that are lay practitioners. So when you have family, when you live outside, when you have other things that you need to attend to, when you have a job, of course, it's not that you can do 24/7 only Buddhism. You have to go to work, you have family engagements, you have to spend some time with friends, you also have other things to do. So it's about arranging our priorities. We cannot do, I guess that it's hard to do only Buddhism, to practice, to study, reflect, and meditate 24 hours a day. But still, in terms of our priorities, we can still see what Shantideva here speaks of laziness as being unenthused about practice. Do we have that? Do we have a lesser type of enthusiasm about the practice? Is it that we think that we can do it, but we choose not to because other things come in between? Or is it that we don't believe that we have the ability to do it?
I think one feeds the other, maybe.
Yeah. One certainly sets the other, feeds the other. Dejana?
Pushing too hard, not pushing enough.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the American practitioners, you push hard, and you think, I want to do it. I like to do that too, but you know, I find that if you do push too hard, you can end up with burnout.
Yeah.
People that come here with great enthusiasm, within 2 or 3 years, they're burnt out, they're gone, never see them again, and hopefully, you know, some positive skills have been planted. But to be able to sustain a Dharma practice for 30 years, 40 years, you've got to be realistic and practice. Which means that there are going to be times when you're going to be engaging in Ignoble Activities and enjoying the pleasure of the movement. Because if you push all the time, you could burn yourself out.
Well, this is why later on in the chapter, first of all, I don't know if the people at home have heard what Decila says. I'm just going to repeat it briefly. So Swami Dechin says that it's hard sometimes to know the fine line between kicking back and relaxing or pushing too hard. You know, sometimes we're not having that silver line between them. We push too hard, and then we tend to burn out. You know, and we see people here that have done it, burn out, and left. So that's a comment that Dechin put forward, and I think that first of all, later on in the chapter, Shantideva would explain how do you go about and properly develop joyous effort. So not just push hard, but actually to be able to do it in a sustainable way. How to come up with a game plan, how to come up with realistic expectations, how to know when you need to have a break. In order to do that, you need to, first of all, have all that knowledge at the tip of your fingers, which is sadly what's happening is that in many cases, people don't either take the time to study extensively, to look at how to come up with a proper game plan, or that they hadn't had the ability to do that or the opportunity to do that. I mean, here we have a great opportunity to spend time to spend it leisurely, to go into things more in depth, to build our knowledge base bit by bit. So we are quite privileged in doing that. But in many places, people don't have the ability to do that. So as I said yesterday, it seems that also in the culture of this organization, there is that encouragement to do more and more and more and more, sometimes without really looking at whether we're doing it wisely, whether we have proper background of study, reflection, and meditation. So if we think, for example, that if we look at people that we do look up to, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, they do work tirelessly, but they have done the legwork to begin with. Not only they've done study, reflection, and meditation, but they also they're motivated by great compassion. If we're going to try to push, but without making sure that, first of all, we have proper compassion, we're not going to be able, I think, to put up with all the difficulties that come up along the way. So it's unfair to think that because Lama Zopa Rinpoche can practice without sleeping, that I can do that as well. That if Lama Zopa Rinpoche doesn't do anything mundane and only work for the sake of others, that I can do it as well. I want to be like him, but in order to get to the point where I'm like him, I need to come up with a game plan. And that has to be quite vast and extensive. And also it would take me a long time to do it. So if you're unaware of that, it's easy to get burnout. If you're putting peer pressure on others, kind of thing that, to go to teaching is selfish, or to meditate is selfish, or to take a break is selfish, if you succumb to that group pressure, you are going to burn out. It is likely that you will burn out. But if you do give yourself the time to just make sure that you have a clear picture of what you need to do in the great scheme of things, you'll be able to sort out your priorities better. I think that all in all, I think that it's a good, self-preservation mechanism. Does it make sense? I hope that I do not sound too critical, but I think that, I've seen also many people burn out, but yeah.
The more really enthusiastic people who want to get in there and want to create change, want to do good, everything like that. So then, it seems to be a fairly common feature. It's not an uncommon feature.
Yeah. It's not an uncommon feature, burnout. Yeah, I think that as I said, it's good to look at some Kappa's, Shantidava's presentation. It particularly speaks of the power of relinquishment, of the power of suspension, knowing when to take a break.
And also, the other thing that let's talk about too, is just your spirit influence. Knowing what you can change and what you can't change. And it's not because of spirit influence. And
Yeah. Indeed. All right, let's look at the first antidote to laziness, or the antidote to the first laziness. Do you remember what was the first laziness Shantideva speaks of? Indolence. Yeah, it's a nice word, isn't it? Indolence. Probably not a nice meaning, but all right, indolence. When we look at the outline, that's the outline. So how to abandon them begins with abandoning laziness by reflecting on the disadvantages of it in this life. So explaining by means of an analogy that death will soon cause this body to perish. then as even you yourself are under the dominion of death, it is inappropriate to carry on as if you had time, and you will be tormented by suffering if you do not make perseverance in virtue. And then going on to, we haven't covered this section yet, but abandoning laziness by reflecting on the disadvantages of it in future lifetimes, just by looking at the outline. Suffering is certain to arise. It will be difficult to bear. It is contradictory to want happiness yet not pursue virtue, and imploring one to pursue the methods by which one may be liberated from suffering. So we have two major Lamrim meditations that Shantideva refers to here. I think that they all kind of quite, they stick up very clearly. What's the first Lamrim meditation that, or meditation that is taken from the Lamrim that Shantideva points out here? Impermanence and death, definitely. And the second one, precious human rebirth, that's also, yeah. Particularly when you think of, we haven't covered that yet, but abandoning laziness by reflecting on the disadvantages of it in future lives. Meditation on the lower realms, the suffering of the lower realms. How would it be for you if you were to, what would happen if we are lazy in this life, not cultivate virtue? Which means that there would be more opportunities for non-virtuous, and then we'll end up in miserable states of existence, experiencing suffering that will be very difficult to bear. It is contradictory to want happiness, which means happiness or good state of rebirth, but not to pursue virtue. And then he speaks of the methods by which we can become liberated from suffering. So then, yeah, I'm jumping ahead. Yeah, it's a sneak peek. So just looking at the outline, it belongs to the section of abandoning the laziness that relishes the taste of idleness. So we said that because of attachment to yeah, relishing. Yeah. More jars of indolence coming your way. Indolence relish on the shelf. Yeah. It's like indolence with a bit of MSG sprinkled on top. Anyway. Sorry? How far did we get in the second week? Secondary offense, sorry. 41? 40. Yeah. All right, I see your point. All right. Yeah. Let's try to do it next week. Yeah. So altogether here, the antidote to laziness that relishes the taste of idleness is a meditation on death and impermanence, and then the suffering of miserable states of existence. And within that, I think that we can also add the foundation for that, which is a meditation on precious human rebirth, as I think as Shrikila commented. So just to look at those verses quickly. Shantideva speaks of enmeshed in the snare of disturbing conceptions. Well, just a second. What are the three main points in the meditation on death and impermanence? Death is certain. The time of death is uncertain. And at the time of death, nothing would be of help apart from the Dharma. They're all found in those verses. So it gives us a good death meditation, a brief one. So ensnaring and enmesh in the snare of disturbing conceptions, you have entered the snare of birth. you're still not aware that you have gone into the mouth of the law of death. So the law of death will certainly come and cannot be avoided. It's the first point in the meditation on death. Death is certain. You do not see that he is systematically slaughtering your species, and craving based on sleep is like a buffalo with a butcher. While the law of death is looking, having blocked off every root, how can you enjoy eating, and thus, how can you enjoy sleep? So we can link it up with other points in the certainty of death. So now the first point in relation to the certainty of death is that the law of death will certainly come and cannot be avoided. Our lifespan constantly diminishes and cannot be extended. Our lifespan is so short, and even when we're alive, there's so little time to practice the Dhamma because we spend so much time on sleep and eating and so forth. So all those points come up in those verses. Then the second point in that meditation is the time of death is uncertain. For as long as death is quickly approaching, then I shall accumulate the collections. Even if I were to abandon laziness then, at that improper time, what will be the use? When this has not been done, when this is initiated, when this is only half done, suddenly the law of death will come and the thought will occur, oh no, I'm doomed. Yeah, it's very unstated. Yeah, the time of death is uncertain. And as Geshe said today, so many conditions for death, so few conditions to keep us alive. And even that which can keep us alive can act in certain situations as the condition for death. So our body is really fragile. And then at the time of death, nothing will be of help apart from the Dhamma. So our friends and relatives will not be of help, our possessions will be of no help, and our body will be of no help. So the face is flowing with tears, and the eyes red and swollen with sorrow. My relatives will finally lose hope, and I shall behold the faces of the messengers of Yama. So that's the meditation on death and impermanence in a small scale. And then verse 10 that we're going to begin with next week. Is today Thursday? All right, so verse 10, we will begin with that next week, is speaking of the suffering of the lower realms. So which is another thing that we need to think of in relation to ridding ourselves of the sense of procrastination, being idle. So that's the first antidote. Now, Geshe also mentioned today Buddha nature, right? Knowing that we can practice, or not thinking that we cannot practice, not thinking that it is beyond us, recognizing a Buddha nature. So quickly looking at the outline and looking at what are waiting for us. So after that, Shantideva explains abandoning the laziness that clings to unwholesome activities, and then abandoning laziness that is disheartened about virtue. And here, when we abandon laziness that is disheartened about virtue or discouragement, we also remind ourselves of our Buddha nature. So it will be covered here in the verse, I think, that more like indirectly, in an indirect way. But here Shantideva also reflects upon the point that we do have the ability to practice. It's not it is reasonable to be discouraged. So that's what I was planning for today. And let's look at. All right. So then sent through some more updates to the tutorial notes, although Kathy sent one today. I still have a few more points up in my notes, so it will be circulated. Jason says, what's the difference between burning out and what happened to Milarepa, where Mapa pushed him past burned out, it seems. It's just the case that Milarepa was already close to enlightenment. I think that probably in the case of Milarepa, what worked for Milarepa was awesome faith in Mapa. Yeah, I mean, if I think of, it seems that Milarepa didn't get burned out. He did whatever Mapa told him, without running away. I guess that he had thoughts at some point of running away, or at the end kind of he did push to get instructions, but he was told to build and take apart those towers quite a few times, and he still did that without losing faith in Mappa. So is it a case that Milarepa was already close to enlightenment? It's no. In the Tibetan tradition, they said that Milarepa attained the state of enlightenment in one lifetime. I mean, it's quite funny when you think of, he must have had imprints upon his mind stream to encounter Mappa to begin with, and to have such strong faith in Mappa. So the way that I think about it, certainly hasn't started just in one life, but just, I think that the devotion to a spiritual teacher based on the imprints that he had before, so then developing devotion in his spiritual teacher and then being totally committed to that enabled him to at the end attain the state of enlightenment in one lifetime. So I guess that for us, we don't have that devotion yet, but also our lifestyle is pretty different.
He killed a lot of people by black magic or something, didn't he, in the early stages before he became enlightened, before he met Mappa?
Yeah, he did have other powers as well.
So he somehow managed to overcome the bad karma of killing all those, destroying a whole town or something, wasn't it? Yeah. And still became enlightened in the same lifetime, which is a bit amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's harder to do it at this day and age. You know, if you want to do it like Milarepa, you probably have to get rid of technology. Yeah. 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 All right. Shall we have an early mark? Cool. Thank you very much, people. Enjoy the weekend. And welcome back to Queensland next week.
Thank you, Carlton. I'll see you tomorrow possibly, but yeah, thanks for that.
No worries. Due to this version, I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful, hermetic cleansing Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subduer's moral way, who serves as a bountiful bearer of all. Sustaining, preserving, and spreading Marjanath's victorious doctrine, O Master, for the accomplished and magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Protector of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Thank you.